So I want to say thank you to our final sponsor, Mr. Kent, for thank you for watching on that record button. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate. All right, I
Is
like
this,
this.
I think, is this someone's personal Zoom room? Like the name says something about Kaufman.
Well, it's supposed to be the Kaufman Foundation.
Okay. I was just thinking they might be the host and automatically. So, because it does,
Yeah,
it
you
usually
probably have
will
to
tell
log.
you.
Yeah, you probably have to log into their account.
So I'll do a little logging in on the background while you start. And let's get it going. So Amelia, you've got 6 minutes. Who's going to do the timer? I got my timer. I'll do it. And afterwards, hopefully I'll have, we just logged in, so we have enough time just to keep on going. All right, the share screen's working. So when you're ready, Emilio,
All right.
the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Timothy and Eva, for the opportunity to share a little bit about my story. I normally talk about the product and a little bit about the business, but I guess I get to talk about myself a little bit. So this is a little bit of a highlight of my career. I'm currently the CEO for Intellecy, which I'll get into just a little bit, but a little bit of my background. I've been in technology for many years, and I'm not an engineer, but I've been around it and I like it enough that I sometimes get asked very, very difficult questions, and I wonder why I'm in a room with a bunch of engineers trying to troubleshoot a major problem. And I have to excuse myself, and then they think I'm sandbagging because I want to come back and charge them money to give them the answer. But so that's been kind of scary over my career. A couple of companies ago, I had a marketing firm for about 8 years, which is really my background is business management and marketing. And oddly enough, most of my customers were on the technology side. I spent a couple of weeks in the Army, and I did some time on active duty. And then I retired as a colonel a couple of years ago. And that was a kind of a very good experience because I learned both the active Army and the reserve Army. And I see how things kind of work very interesting in different parts of an organization that's very big and should be very structured, how it becomes unstructured when things get very interesting. And then lastly, a little bit about myself. With this whole COVID thing, I didn't realize how much I needed to be outdoors and outside my home. The simple drive into the office was something key just to kind of get my mind going with work. If I needed to unwind, I would step out the office and maybe walk around the building for a few minutes. Some of those things, this whole COVID kind of really brought back, and I'm kind of glad I'm seeing that because being in the Army for a while, things like hiking and camping were kind of something of the past, and I didn't want to quite do that, but I think it's something that is kind of reinvigorating in its own way. Let me tell you a little bit about, oh, no, I'm frozen. There we go. A little bit about Intellecy. We're based out of San Diego. We started almost 5 years ago. And at the time, the technology that we were developing, because we had a background, both myself and the co-founder, we thought it'd take us, I don't know, 12 months to 18 months to figure this whole thing out. And the whole thing that we were trying to figure out is how to capture water moving through a pipe. And we thought, well, we have some basic technology in vibration and acoustics and a couple of other technologies. We can kind of work together to figure this thing out. Well, it took us a lot longer than that. It took us almost 3.5 years to really perfect it. And then we had another stumbling block, which was some of the technology inside the motherboard was not quite as available as we wanted to be. And we had to make a shift. So let me tell you a little bit about the technology. It's a smart water management system, and it's intended for homeowners to be able to manage the water and protect their homes against leaks. So we have a static, non-intrusive, so you don't cut the pipe, sensor that captures all water flowing into the home. It's just, you put one sensor in the main supply line inside the home, and it can capture all the data related to your water use. The hub is where all the information is collected and analyzed, so it stays in your home. In case you lose Wi-Fi, you don't lose any water data. Of course, you have to have an app so you can see what's going on with your water situation. So you get notifications on there, such as high water use, a leak is detected, you're not conserving what your goals are, so you're going over budget on your water. And then, of course, if there's a leak from the app, you can activate one of those two valve controllers on the right to turn off your water remotely. One is kind of a DIY, goes over your existing valve, and the other one is more of a sleek look. It goes, you cut the pipe, and it kind of works into your plumbing system as part of your plumbing network. So a little bit about how we came up with the idea. After I left my marketing firm, I made a very bad mistake, and I went to work for one of my clients. And they were working on a smart irrigation controller. So how to manage water with your backyard lawn systems and all that stuff. And it was a very interesting system, and it was working very well. However, I thought the market was very small. As I was researching it, two things hit me. One is I suffered a catastrophic leak, which is that picture in the middle. That was my home, all the furniture that we took out of my home after we had a leak. And this is not a flood, not a natural disaster. This was a pipe that burst inside my home. So as you can see, a lot of my furniture was not so nicely.
A nice gaming chair you had there.
Yeah. So, so both working for that irrigation company and my own personal experience, I started to really look at leaks in the home and how big a problem it was. It kind of dawned on me that I think we can figure this out by just putting a sensor over the pipe, because when a pipe bursts, water's flowing at max, we should be able to do that. And so I joined with the gentleman on there. His name is Joost Barhout. He was a CTO at SKF, where we both worked. We worked on multiple projects together, and we had a cup of coffee and another cup of coffee. It wasn't a 1 million cups meeting, but it was a cup of coffee and another cup of coffee. And we brought in a couple other folks that we thought could help us. They thought we were crazy. They thought it wasn't a great idea, so they dropped out. The two of us moved forward with the idea, and that's where we are today. So what is the problem we're trying to solve? Well, basically, people don't know how much water they use because their bill is useless. Water prices are going up. Scarcity is a problem. And then, of course, the problem that I personally experience and a lot of folks experience, which they think won't happen to them, which is leaks. A little bit about our competition. We have either a competitive advantage across the board in these areas, or some of these other competitors match. And I decided not to really put what their capabilities are, only because sometimes I'm afraid if they're watching some of this stuff. But some of the key things about ours is our system goes completely on the outside. So it's a DIY option for a homeowner to actually be able to install this themselves. So there's no pipe cutting. We really focus on savings. Most of these other folks focus on just showing you your water use. And that's kind of cool for like the first 2 or 3 days, then people start getting bored. Our focus is more on what Fitbit does with fitness, where they're trying to remind you to take your steps every hour, to make sure you work out, watch your calories, those sorts of things. So we're really focusing on savings. Our technology, the type of technology we're using, allows us to detect leaks like a pipe burst at a very high flow, or a small leak inside the wall, like a pinhole size leak. So both at low flow and high flow. We do something because of the vibration that we're capturing off the pipe, which allows us to monitor your plumbing health. And I can get into that in more detail, but we're looking at things like water hammer and a change in that water hammer signal that we capture, as well as the fluttering of the pressure regulator. So that may be another sign that you're about to have a leak. Then, of course, we have the remote water shutoff. So where are we today? We're ready to commercialize. We've finished the systems. We're refining some stuff on the app and capturing some additional data. It allows us to get ready to commercialize. We've looked at some injection molding, and now we're going to do some other stuff. Ava kind of shared some tips for me to look at something, and we're moving on that. So we're looking at machining some of the plastics, and that's our last step. We're in a investor seeking mode right now, and we're looking at our system to just expand. We have a one sensor to one hub. We're going to go multi-channel, which means having multiple sensors would allow us to go into a building, more of a commercial / industrial setting. And lastly, we need to expand into different sales channels. The biggest two that we're looking at are water utilities as well as electronic distributors. So where do I need some, I think, immediate help? The first thing is water utilities. Sometimes the general manager is so busy and so interested that it takes 7 reschedules of meetings to actually get through to them. So that's one area that I would like to maybe move a little bit quicker with. And then the other one is publicity. We are a consumer product, and it's just numbers. We got to create that awareness and create that interest, because once people know about our product, I've never heard anybody turn their back on us and say, no, I don't need this. I want my house to be flooded by a leak, or I don't really care about water. So being able to share the story would be something key. So anything along those lines would be greatly appreciated.
All right.
That's my story. Any questions?
Oh,
Awesome.
I'm sure there's a room full of questions.
Actually, Emilio, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I had to come off the call briefly while I was getting in the car, but did you? I thought it might be interesting to also tell them about what you noticed during COVID. Remember the story you were telling me about the guy who's home working up front with a skill saw, and about machine learning. Do you know that? I believe that was the piece of machinery that person was using.
Skill saw.
Well, you said a guy was using like some sort of power tool in his garage for because he's home more, and that the sensor was picking up on it.
Oh, yes. So
yes.
One of the, so we are vibration sound-based sensor. We have other technologies like temperature that we have in the sensor, but the main one that we capture if water's running and we use to measure is in essence a sound-based sensor. And what we have is we have a frequency range that we know that it's water. We thought we had filtered out anything that was either above or below that frequency range until somebody started using a particular piece of machinery in the garage in close proximity to our sensor, and we were getting some really weird signals about water running when it really wasn't. So this whole COVID has really opened us up not only to have people using their homes more in odd times and in odd ways, which has helped us to continue to refine our technology, but we also have found, just to build on that question, it's also opened up some other opportunities. For example, one of the reasons why we're going to go into commercial buildings is one of our test sites is a property manager, and they have someone who goes to check their properties all night. And part of their security checks is they check the water meter to make sure it's not spinning out of control, which means there's a leak in the building. And they thought, wouldn't it be good if we had your system in our building to just tell us that there's a leak, if there's water running at 2 o'clock in the morning at this office building where no one should be there? So that's kind of opened us up to another opportunity well beyond what we had thought would apply in a building setting. So COVID has been kind of anxious building / opportunity building scenario for us.
Yeah, I think of the fact that, yeah, no, go Wendy.
Yeah, so I have a question, Emilio. Thanks for your presentation. It's great. I mean, having a business like this in California, it's needed. So you're in the right space. But the question I have is around security. So, you know, a lot of IoT devices are being hacked, and you know, what has been your approach with your development team in making sure that you're addressing security?
So my initial disclaimer is I'm not a thief. I've never been a thief. I've never been in jail. I've had, anyway, I won't get into that. But when we first started this, that was my concern. You know, not really seeing a pandemic ever happening. I knew as a kid whenever newspapers accumulated in front of a home, those people were on vacation. So if I can see that there's no water use between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., I know that person either at school, work, out of the house. All I have to do is track their patterns and realize, let me get the moving truck and pull up at about 8:30 and just clean out the whole house as a thief. So what we decided to do is we don't capture your home address. That's the first thing we do. The second thing is if there's some sort of correlation that a good, smart person can do, all that information is maintained at the hub, which is in your home. So all that we back up is water use data assigned to an encrypted number that is now re-encrypted and reassigned to the unit ID. So there's 2 or 3 layers that a good guy would be able to do if they really had a reason to do it, but a bad guy gets lazy and goes on to the next soft target. So we don't capture your home address, and we've kind of triple encrypted how to get ultimately to your home.
That's awesome. So on getting into utilities, how you had talked about, is it part of reaching out to the city manager to get to the utilities instead of just going to the utilities? Because if you get the city behind you, then they'll say, have a meeting with this guy. So instead of getting a hold of the busy guy that's, taking care of all the water departments and stuff going around the town, go for more of a higher up approach and saying, hey, this is really good for our community. Especially when water is such a resource during our drought times. And even just for the city to put it into their own water systems. I see city sprinklers just going off all the time, just going for the whole day. So it's getting the city behind you, maybe the city manager. I don't know who's in charge of the utilities parts in different cities, but that was my idea.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think you're alluding to a big problem in the water industry is you go to one